And I just want to let everybody know Floyd has to leave at 11, so we want to try to get as much as we can in between now and then.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. So try to be as quick as you
I'm going to
can.
be, some of the stuff is redundant, so I can skip over because you've already discussed some of this stuff. So, good morning. Am I set to go?
Yep.
We've got screens.
Yeah.
So, okay. No, I need to go into full screen mode, I guess, do I?
There for a second.
What do you think about that?
That didn't work.
No.
Was there?
Click.
Technical people, go do something.
Gosh.
Just don't ask me to help you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Derek, would you fix that, please?
Yeah.
When it comes to this, I couldn't punch myself into the paper bag.
So your folder?
This is right here, yeah. It's open.
Do we have this?
No.
No, you do not, because I tried to send it to you and you guys didn't have any way to
He
accept
can't
it.
even make it appear, so no.
Oh, I can make it, I could
No,
have sent
it's
it
our
to you.
technology. This happened to me the other night at the TAC meeting. It flashed up and flashed off and flashed up and flashed off.
Yeah, I offered to bring a flash drive up to the office, but Pam told me I couldn't.
There you go. Can't put flash drives in. That's right.
Oh.
Okay, so here we are. And you. All right, here we are. Good morning. Finally. My name is Jonathan Leggett, and I'm a proud full-time resident of Chester Central Village at 75 King Street. This is my home, and some of the renovations I've started doing. The picture on the left is what I bought, and the picture on the right is what it looks like currently.
You get all your permits in place, I hope.
I don't think I need a permit for shutters or to replace the door, so I'm very careful about that.
I'm trying to amuse myself.
I'm an interior designer, and we do a lot of big renovations in the area and all over the place. So, and I am, when we have clients that say, "Oh, don't use a permit," I'm just like, "Well, I hope you're very good to your neighbors, because if you have one envious neighbor, you're screwed." So I always make a point of getting permits for everything. Alrighty, so. I also own a property at 90 Mill Cove Shore Road on the Aspatega Peninsula, which I've owned for over 15 years, and that's my dog enjoying it. My relationship with the South Shore has been a lifelong, and before me, many generations have lived or summered along the South Shore. Family names include Heffler, Tremaine, and Schwartz. My last name is, of course, from my father's family, which is from Ontario, but we really don't talk about the Ontario part. Dad met my mother while living in Halifax and fell in love with the person and the place. Our weekends were spent exploring the South Shore, playing, swimming, and spending time with family dotted along the way. My grandfather in one sitting could practically bankrupt the all-you-can-eat lobster supper in Ingrimport. My best childhood memories are here in the municipality of the District of Chester, which is dear to my heart. So much so, I own 2 properties here. I would like to start by thanking each and every of our counselors for their service to the community, and to thank everyone at the municipal office for their hard work and dedication to what I'm sure feels like a thankless job some days. I realize it is impossible to please everyone with everything. Oh, come on now. Whoopsies. All right. With such great dedication and guidance, we are fortunate to live in a beautiful place, both naturally and with our built heritage and landscape. Our population is well above the rural average for secondary education, and I'm sure it is in no small part due to the educational trusts and scholarships that have been put into place and action by former and current residents. The spirit of community is great here, and it is evident every day when we see neighbors helping neighbors through large fundraising events to small gestures. It is what makes living in the smaller rural communities so special. I've said many times that I had to move somewhere smaller to feel like I'm a part of something bigger, and I do, which is why I'm here. The idea of you are a gardener or a hunter will come into play through my talk. Please note that I am a carnivore, from sneaking an extra slice of Mrs. Levangi's rabbit pie as a child to roasting venison as an adult. I'm also a gardener, so I'm totally fine with a few less deer to eat. My tulips. If the idea of a hunter sounds negative in this talk, it's simply to illustrate a concept, not a personal opinion, because I realize I've got some hunters here and I've got no problem with it. You should shoot a few more deer, please.
Want to get deer neck for supper last Friday night?
Well, you can invite me over next time.
You catch the fairy tango.
Okay. Well, I've had before. I love can't cook. While listening to a podcast one morning, I was taken with the idea being discussed. Are you a gardener or are you a hunter? The story was based on business relationships and how moving forward like a gardener by planting seeds of a long-term connection with thoughtfulness and care will grow them into strong, healthy relationships that will bear fruit for a lifetime. Conversely, the idea of the hunter was brought forward, taking opportunity to seize what you can from the situation without long-term nurturing and care that results in one-time deals and always having to chase after the next target. In one scenario, you eat for a lifetime, the other only when you find the next mark. Chester Central Village is a garden, and we are the gardeners, the stewards of this place that we tend and want to see develop and grow, along with the fruit that it will bear. To do so, we must take care of our assets, tend to them, make sure they are safe. Like most gardens, Chester Central Village is both beautiful naturally and through the nurturing hands of humankind. The beauty and character of the garden we call Chester is our biggest asset, our image, our calling card, and what we are good at. Arriving in Chester is like the realization of a fairy tale, Mrs. Charles Hooker Talcott. Going to Chester is like stepping back through time, white picket fences, old cars like those collectors buy, and clapboard or shingled houses, and sidewalk-less roads that make it one of the most charming towns I've seen in Canada. Suzanne Dimma, House and Home magazine. The secret of Chester's generations-old allure may lie in its ever-changing pace of life and perennial scent of seaweed, pine, briar roses, and burning wood. Summer after summer, generations of American and Canadian families have returned to their seaside homes in Chester to savor the unspoiled views from their windows. Drawn by the primeval force of Chester's natural setting, its peculiarly Canadian aspect, and the way they have built roomy clapboard colonial and Victorian retreats high atop wooded hillsides, here from dawn till dusk, they quietly monitor the ever-changing seascape of the Atlantic, Town and Country magazine. The look and character of Chester Central Village has long been protected by residents, both full and part-time, by becoming involved directly in its protection or by simply maintaining charming cottage, keeping a tidy garden, or running a summer home of large proportions with rolling lawns and park-like setting tended by staff and shared with neighbors and visitors alike. The council, through their stewardship, has helped maintain this special place, realizing the value of its natural beauty and built heritage. Our image, known across the country and around the globe, is that of simple beauty and characterful homes built in the classic grid pattern, surrounded by vegetation and wildlife, glistening seas, and some of the world's best sailing. These are some of the assets that drew me here and anyone else I've spoken to that has moved here over the last 5 years, and those back as far as people's families have been choosing to live here. They are the assets that have brought families and that have brought generations of families back year after year, and the characteristics that television and film seek out. We have managed to preserve one of the oldest, most intact villages around, while many others have let these assets slip through their fingers. It feels like the revised village plan is forgetting some of these assets. I have been an entrepreneur my entire life, from selling seashells in the front yard at 6 to opening my first retail store at 19. Entrepreneurship is in my blood. Today, I'm one of Canada's top 100 designers because through all the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship, I discovered that I must lean into my natural assets, make the best of my natural abilities and the assets I already possess. The same can be said for anyone or anything, including a village. We wouldn't have great actors or great authors, hockey players or doctors, business owners, golf pros, or anyone else exceptional if people didn't lean into and hone their assets they possess. And then we look at the planning strategy objectives from page 11. This is the current, not the proposed. The existing character of Chester regarded as high quality, predominantly residential living environments and traditional architectural character and urban form, with small enclaves of modern residential, commercial, and institutional, and light industrial development is regarded as the primary point of reference and model for future development. 2.2, it is the intention of council to protect the existing character of Chester from inappropriate development and to require that new development shall fit with an enhanced existing character. 2.25, it is the intention of council to control land use development in a manner that will preserve, enhance, and protect the natural environment and the living environment of the planning area. I understand the amount of work that has gone into the new village plan, but unfortunately, it aims to provide a generic answer for a special situation. A situation that is as fragile as a young seedling and requires special care to ensure its stability. R1 areas changing to R2 and Chester Central Village to R2 designations feel more like a knee-jerk reaction to federal and provincial pressure, coupled with the municipal housing needs assessment for communities to infill and create more housing. I would say more affordable housing, but we all know that the opportunity for that in Central Village has long gone. And frankly, why would we use our most valuable and scarce land for infill projects when we have the ability to create this with less cost to the municipality and damage to the village outside of the Central Village in newly developing parts of the municipality? The plan you will be deciding upon regarding the future of the Central Village change to R2 is a template for more urban circumstances where infrastructure is already in place to handle the demands of population jumps. Chester Central Village is not a one-size-fits-all situation. Particular concerns are R1 changing to R2 along the back harbor. There are some large estate properties that maintain the character of the village with their rolling lawns and simple, elegant old homes. These are seen from both the water and the roads where visitors and locals travel along every day. These park-like settings and beautiful homes that enhance the essence of the village are maintained by countless tradespeople and workers from Chester and the surrounding districts employed by tax-paying homeowners. Central Village to R2, this is perhaps the most dangerous of changes I have found. By homogenizing the village core and including it with other areas, we no longer recognize that it is a special place of historic importance containing the built heritage of the story of Chester and how it came to be the place it is today. We are so fortunate to have well cared for homes that date back as far as the 1700s, up to homes built with dreamy visions by prominent Americans and Upper Canadians in the early 1900s to 50s. Who employed off-season boat builders, teams of laborers from our own communities to realize the detailed plans of the architects of the day. These homes have shaped Chester and have continued to employ full-time residents of the municipality for many years through maintenance and care. To remove the wording and the intention behind Chester Central Village is to take our identity and leave us unprotected. Mindful renovation and development. Chester Central Village also creates a gentle transition between R1, or estate properties, and the rest of the community. It is an area that provides the space to expand from the R1, which because of the location cannot grow to meet the needs of new homeowners and residents that would like to be in that area. Village Core has authentic homes that can be thoughtfully renovated and cared for to a high standard in proximity to the yacht club, restaurants, tennis club, art center, playhouse, golf course, and marinas and other activities and local small businesses residents enjoy and support financially. And then this is just an example. This is one of my projects. This is Marriott's Cove, and the homeowners needed a separate area to house guests or to have their children come with their children. So we had a very high quality shingled roof that we were actually able to cut off, crane off, put on the ground, build the second story, and then crane the roof back onto. So there are ways to be very mindful. There's ways to be cost effective in making changes as long as you think outside the box. And the thing that I'm the most afraid of is that we don't tend to think out of the box here. And a lot of the times when I make a suggestion, it said, well, we don't do that. Or who does that in Canada? Or who does that? You're talking about America. Well, I don't understand, just because it's American doesn't mean it isn't a good idea. And if there are no other communities doing some of these things, why aren't we not going to be the mavericks? Why are we not going to be the ones that are known for having paved the way to choose things in a better way? So that's kind of where my mind goes with that. But Chester Central Village also creates, okay, so I've already said that, the new roof slide, and then existing planned multi-unit and duplexes, page 27 of the Chester Area Secondary Planning Strategy. As an interim measure to address the housing shortage, Council has authorized amendments to permit multi-unit residential structures within the Central Commercial Zone by developing a development agreement. This will provide an opportunity for additional housing stock to be created in the village while maintaining existing limits on density in established residential areas. The intention of this new policy directed is to maintain existing character, protect property values, and protect water supply in established areas. And then we see here, this is in the existing, we have limitations. So as Garth mentioned earlier, and I know I'm being redundant on this, that you can convert an old home into a duplex, which is wonderful. But what we have here is you were not allowed to build a new duplex, which with the accessory building is now a triplex. So we're not only taxing what one family once used and turning it into two families, we're actually now going to make it three families that are going to be using the resources from that one piece of land. And that also required that the land that a 2-unit dwelling would be built on was 8,000 square feet, and I believe that's going down to like 7,500 or somewhere around that. The main concern is that the 90 meters or 295 feet between new construction of houses, and we'll get into why that is. So, and now we kind of have like a free-for-all on where you can build this. So R2 is pretty harmless upon first glance, but the sum of its parts are not conducive to maintaining the feel of the village. Smaller lot sizes, accessory buildings without strict guidelines regarding their appearance, the ability to build rows of triplexes, a duplex with an accessory dwelling unit, the acceptance of lesser building materials regardless of proportion, and loose Airbnb rules open the doors to every type of development. 4 3-unit buildings in a row give a developer a small 12-unit hotel without any of the rules and regulations of a small hotel or the costs involved in building it, to regulation and also avoiding commercial property taxes. It is also a sweet spot for developers. 4 3-unit buildings are much more cost effective than one multi-unit apartment building. So current rents, I am missing a slide here with the municipal, I read the municipal housing needs report. Current rents in duplexes in and around Chester range from $3,500 to $4,500 a month, while sold individual units have gone for $475,000 to $550,000 in the last 6 months. Double that for an entire structure with 2 units, which nets the same property tax dollars as a single home in the same footprint, not meeting the need for affordable housing. Small, renovated, new 1-bedroom dwelling units rent at $1,800 to $2,500 a month in the Central Village, not the needed housing according to the Municipal Housing Needs Report. While other communities such as Lunenburg are recognizing and leveraging their built heritage by actually expanding the designated historic areas, which they're doing in Lunenburg. Right now, the central Lunenburg is like level 1, and then you go a little bit to where like the Blue Nose Lodges or the Knot Pub and those places, and then you're in level 2, and then it goes into level 3. They're going to make it all level 1. But they're also bringing in that whole new project that we've all heard about as well being built. So they are expanding designated historic areas with stricter covenants and guidelines while creating new but complementary areas of density adjacent to protected historic areas. We are doing the opposite with this plan. We are failing to recognize our assets and our value. Our existing guidelines for the village core are not strong enough to manage to maximize the potential of the village, and the new R2 throws the baby out with the bathwater. Communities that have stricter regulations regarding the character and historic value of built heritage are seen as places that are safer for both business and residential investors. They can move forward creating a quality building or home knowing that its value will always be protected by the regulations that all neighbors must adhere by. Buying into a place with protections is a more sound investment. The 2004 Village Plan alludes to and promises similar things that this plan does. Maybe we will form a design approval committee. Maybe we will designate a heritage or an historic act or area of the village, etc., etc. What are we waiting for? If we don't act now, the village will be history, and we will have lost what so many other communities have already, our built character. That movie setting, picture perfect place that only time can create or erase. With regard to the design approval committee, it has been said, how is it fair that 3 to 6 people get to decide what looks good or fits in? To that I ask, how is it more fair that 1 or 2 people get to decide what's approved without strict guidelines and with no design, history, or architectural background? We have a community of residents with architectural, design, art, history, building experience, and backgrounds that could be called upon in a volunteer status to review plans. This could be through elected or appointed positions, or they could be called upon to create a solid design parameters and guidelines to be followed within the central village. Now, my next thing, this is where we get redundant. This is the vinyl siding, which I'm so thrilled to hear you're getting your
I don't want to be.
I know, I'm taking up a lot of time, and I waited a long time for other people to speak too. So, guidelines for the building materials and architectural features are crucial to the look and feel of the village and must be thoroughly considered. So, this is just simply to say the problem with vinyl siding is not simply the vinyl siding, is the fact that all the architectural details, in order to adhere vinyl siding to a house, are often removed or negated or made redundant. So you can see here, these are 2 of the same houses, but when vinyl siding is put on, they remove a lot of the features that make that house unique. So, and that's another reason why there needs to be a design review committee. A lot of what gets passed through here is just like a board for window casing. There's no backbeat, there's nothing on there that gives it the detail that makes it look authentic to the village. In this slide, and I am almost finished, in this slide, this photo is an example of a new build that has thoughtfully considered its surroundings and its neighbors to help create continuity with a few careful details and choices in materials. They are not historic reproductions, but aim to blend with the scale and form. This type of thoughtful construction increases the values of existing homes and themselves. When I purchased my own home here in the Central Village, the bank appraiser gave extra value to my home because the surrounding homes were of complementary style and quality of materials. Complementary materials and styles are important when it comes to accessory buildings and dwelling units and must be enforced. When I look from my home in the Central Village, these are the current homes and buildings that I see. This accessory building and its big sister, the main house, are quite literal in their complementary design aesthetic. Well, this accessory building and dwelling unit is different from the main house, but it is complementary and looks like it belongs together. Not a speck of vinyl siding in sight. So thank you guys for that. I understand that in general, making accessory units affordable is important, but within a few blocks of the Central Village, the character of the village needs to be considered. Most homeowners in this area could find a way to make this happen if they want an additional unit, especially with federal grants coming into play. This would give additional unit view while making an attractive addition to the community and the neighbors and visitors alike. Similar standards and controls should be extended to core commercial. This slide illustrates how choices, proportions, and details transform a similar size structure from basic utilitarian to a beautiful addition to the community and a further asset that enhances the character and feel of the village. Yes, the building on the left requires maintenance, but the building on the right, like a Christmas poinsettia, will last far longer than you want to look at it. Large structures are not foreign to Chester, especially going back many years to the heydays of the village. We just have to look at old photos to see that Chester had many large buildings that have been lost over time. Why could we not encourage businesses to recreate some of the old lost buildings to house their new enterprises or multi-unit buildings? Reconstructing buildings wouldn't have to be in the original locations as long as they fit in their new locations. Special incentives could be employed for these cases, such as expanded land coverage or an extra few feet of height if that was consistent with the original structure. This would be acceptable because the building would be enhancing the story of our built heritage. And for an example, in Halifax, a public art installation in front of a high-rise can get you an additional story. You can have 12 stories instead of 11. And I spent a great deal of my time speaking about the pretty parts of the village and preserving them, but there's still a larger issue with infilling and jumping up the population without careful consideration, and that is, of course, potable water and the lack of it. At this point, I can imagine, to some of you, I'm beginning to sound like the teacher from Peanuts, rah, 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 rah. But the water issue in Chester seems to be as old as Chester. Every village planning document talks about the lack of water and the lack of a plan to do anything about it. Now it has become an even bigger concern as we turn our focus to growing the population and creating more housing. It is clear that Chester Central Village cannot handle the type of potential growth R2 will allow for. We've been tempting fate for some time, but now the potential for tripling the population in pockets of the Central Village is a dangerous game of roulette. I am one person living in my home, and I have to enlist cottage rules come August at the height of summer and when the village is at capacity, as many of my neighbors do. We happen to live in an area, myself, that could see a sharp turn from a few people to a couple dozen, all competing for the same water aquifers. I know other people who have had issues with water for generations, and now they go dry. Businesses spend tens of thousands of dollars bringing water in just to carry on business. Just yesterday, I heard from another person that had bad water since a new well was drilled near them. This is the third person I've heard a similar story from in the last year. Recently, a new build apparently covered a good well and then couldn't find any other water on the property. Other neighbors on King Street are now finding toxins in their water. These are not made-up stories or old wives' tales. This is the truth from the people who actually live here. How much water are we talking about? And this is from Statistics Canada. Each of us as human beings, now 5 years ago, we were using 462 liters of water a day just to exist. That's doing laundry, doing dishes, that's taking a shower, watering your plants, all those things. And this is government statistics. And the little A after there means it's extremely accurate information when you look at this report. So now we use each person, you, me, all of us, the equivalent, and that's put together, 370 liters of water a day for one person to exist. That's how much water we use. Now, we are among the worst in the world, but we are getting better. In the UK, it's around 150, 170. So the next thing, so basically when we look at one family of four, that times we're using 1,480 liters of water. If we look at a triplex unit, that one unit is going to be using 4,440 liters of water. So when we look at this, we see we've got one house, one family, one well, 1,480 liters of water a day. I can't even believe I take 370 liters of water out of my well a day. I can't even believe it. So the other one, the next house is one house with three families living in it, and the amount we have. And then, which could happen to me, I live on the corner of King and Union Street, and there are lots that are being developed there, and there are also lots that have potential to be developed. So we could be looking at four houses, which would, with 3 units each, which would equate to 12 families. So in 4 wells, we're asking those wells to produce 17,760 liters of water a day. And that's going to be all coming from the same water aquifer. So we all know what happens when you live on a hill and the person below you is using more water. You don't have any water left. And the next thing we're going to talk about is, so I've asked the questions many times about the water in public meetings, and no one was able to provide me with the answers. So I had to turn to Statistics Canada for the information of how much water the average Canadian uses, which is what surprised me so much, which is why I was compelled to contact people about this. The other question I've been asking is, what is our target growth rate? And no one seems to be able to answer that question. We don't know how many people we want to come here. I dug around and I found that many conflicting numbers and opinions that even the federal and provincial reports conflict with one another. It seems that the population rate increase has decreased from its peak during COVID to about 0.28% in Nova Scotia. And this is from the Nova Scotia Government Economics and Statistics. And you can see on there that was between October and January, so winter months difficult. But then from July to September of 23, 4,600 new people moved to Nova Scotia, and the same left Nova Scotia. So our numbers didn't really do anything. I think that was very, very marginal. So there was not much happening there. So reading the municipal housing needs report of 2022, we are short by 335 units and are producing roughly 45 homes a year, almost all not considered affordable. I can also see that any housing we might create in Chester would be completely unaffordable to satisfy the needs of the people in need, coupled with no job prospects in the area. I'm not sure why there is a panic to create density in the least affordable area of the municipality. New development will not be for those who need the housing. Perhaps the council could consider how to use $20 million to create affordable housing and shelters instead of discussing where to put a $20 million building to house their offices. According to an article from CBC, December 22nd, 2023, Stats Canada reports from July to September 23rd, 4,600 people moved to Nova Scotia. The same amount left Nova Scotia for other areas of Canada. And this is a quote from the article, and I'm almost done. During the pandemic, Nova Scotia was viewed as a safe haven from COVID-19, particularly compared to other places like Ontario. While work-from-home policies and dreams of a different lifestyle prompted thousands of people to pack up and head east. But not only has that rush eased, there has been a small reversal, according to consultant Amy Grady of Thompson's Moving, which is based in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. She said her company is now moving families back to Ontario. Some are bored with the slower pace of Nova Scotia, she said, and want the entertainment life of Toronto. Others fear they are missing out on job perks and opportunities by working remotely. Cite concerns about Nova Scotia's healthcare system, or who find themselves in a city or a community where with quickly escalating rents. Let's say all goes well and we have an influx of people. With expansions come new costs: traffic control, police presence, sidewalks, better roads, streetlights, municipal water, garbage removal, and expanded sewer systems and processing. Our standards will be more policed. I certainly know there are some drain grates that haven't been met code since 1950s. You could send that baby with the bathwater right down one. Urban residents moving to an area with comparable tax rates will demand more. Did you know that a single traffic light installation is $180,000 to $250,000, approximately half of the village operating expenses of $415,201.05, which is just 1/3 of the taxes collected from the peninsula alone at about $1.3 million. Where does the scale tip that Chester is costing more than what it brings in? Right now, the ROI is pretty amazing. I do think that we should be planning to expand and to grow, but we should have a clear idea about where we are going rather than a build it and they will come attitude. Planning for future success should include planning for all aspects of expansion, not just how many dwellings we can force into a place that can't support them. If you are planting a garden, you need to know how many plants you will want, how big they will get, how many rows you will make, how much fertilizer will be required, and how much water will be needed. You don't plant a garden in a desert and worry about the water later. A housing crisis isn't a time to hunt. This is a time to nurture, to grow, to care. It is a time to be a gardener. We need to recognize who and how many people we are planning for. When throwing a garden party, it is important to know how many people are coming if you'd like everyone to have a hot dog, or in this case, a glass of water. Thank you.
Thank you. You put a lot of time and thought into that. We're very creative.
You're entirely right that I did. I took 2 days off work to do it.
Thank you very much. Anyone, any questions? I mean, it's all related to land use, which we're dealing with on a regular, ongoing basis. So.
Yeah. I just want you to recognize that, we're a fragile little plant that needs to be nurtured, not just bowled over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Brian, June, Rick.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I've got 14 slides I want to show you. So this is going to be done with military precision and attention to time. Just to give you a bit of background on this, anyway, I want to say good morning to everyone. My wife Cindy and I have been permanent residents at 103 Granite Street now since 2020.
Okay.
My background, I'm a professional engineer, GSC certified, also well as a project management professional. 39 years of practicing in the construction design form. Led Ellis Don's business unit here in Atlantic, Canada for over 20 years. I've built over $2 billion worth of construction on 70 different projects. Some of the bigger projects that I've worked on are Nova Center in downtown Halifax, the Irving Shipyard expansion. So I come to the table with a lot of expertise and insight. What I'm really here to talk about today is the new marine zone impact that it's going to have on our quiet, mature neighborhood. Right now, the marine zone is identified as two key areas. One is Mill Cove, surrounding the Stephen Boat Works and the Heisler's Boatyard, and the Roadblock property on the Front Harbor. Both areas are very different and very distinct with their own characteristics. The Roadblock in a more busy commercial area part of the peninsula, whereas Mill Cove, it's a very quiet neighborhood and just a different characteristic. What really concerns us is the proposed new C-22 policy that states that it shall permit more intensive and potentially disruptive commercial uses by development agreement. And this will include tourist accommodation, restaurants, and marinas. And another big red flag for us is that this development, or proposed development, is not done via a development permit. There are no minimum front, side, back, yard setbacks, and there's no maximum height defined for structure. So when you look at that in respective to Mill Cove, we're talking a lot of two-story, single-story dwellings. And when you look at the land mass that both Stevens and Heisler cover, it could have a very detrimental effect of what it could look like going forward. So I just want to table what impacts are coming to mind, like from our community, and and they're contained to neighborhood impacts, environmental impacts, and property impacts. The Marine Development Zone, intensive and destructive tourist accommodation and restaurant development on the Heisler and Stevens properties will have a negative effect on the surrounding 100 plus PIDs that also surround that cove, comprised of the back part of the village, Walker Road, Walker Cut, and Haddon Hill. This development has the potential to cause both noise and light pollution that is not compatible with the quiet neighborhood or the marine way of life in the cove. We're also concerned about the increased road traffic, water traffic within the cove itself due to our tight streets and the congested Mill Cove waterway. Then that could possibly add and cause safety issues within the environment. So this slide here just shows where the properties are located on back of Mill Cove and the far-reaching effect that any development that could have on the 100 plus PIDs in the surrounding area. As far as environmental impacts go, one of our biggest fears is that both boatyards have worked for many decades on the properties that they now occupy. And over that time, we know environmental regulations aren't what they are today. So we're concerned about ground-borne hydrocarbons and any other materials that could have been dumped on those properties over the lifespan. And we're concerned that any disturbing of the property, and I know this is covered by provincial jurisdiction and regulations, but any potential disturbing of those properties has the ability to unleash the hydrocarbons and other contaminants, which could contaminate our water supply, because we all draw from the water table. It could contaminate adjoining properties. I'm at 103 Granite Street, so I'm at ground zero, right? Any potential thing that could happen on this property is 5 feet from my property line right now, including my well. We're also concerned about the noise pollution that a property like this will cause, and Rick will get up here in a minute and speak about a property down in First South past Wittenberg that is undergoing these same things right now. We're concerned about the light pollution and noise pollution and how that can affect marine life in the cove. We've got everything in there from all kinds of birds and sea mammals as well. Property impacts. Again, the properties around any proposed new development with tourism accommodation and restaurant development will affect our quiet enjoyment of our properties. And I don't have to look very far other than going past Chester Race Week. We all know what an important event Chester Race Week is for the community. But for 1 week a year, I get the privilege of hearing a bunch of rowdy people drink, party, and puke off their boats. I usually take that time to leave my property and go somewhere else for that week. So any development on this property, other than what it's intended for right now, will create a density issue as well. And density, if we have any kind of tourist accommodation there, again, will have an impact on water supply. Again, traffic, I've already mentioned, and contamination. And all this could affect our property values, which we've all seen rise dramatically since COVID. And at the end of the day, the municipality benefits by the new generated tax dollars. I've already spoken to this slide, next slide. So I guess the question that I'm saying is the desires of a few to change the designation of the zoning to further enhance their small business and carry that forward for survival. That really has to be weighed against the properties there that are the 100 other plus properties that call this home. And changing the dynamic of the industrial zone right now to a development zone, from my perspective, is only for financial gain. So Rick was going to speak quickly to this. It's the first south noise violation. It's called the Folk Farm in South Cove. And it's a new development that has gone in the last number of years, and it's primarily used as an event location. It's got new structures on the waterfront, use of an old existing building, a barn, and they host basically 2 weddings every weekend, which something like this in our backyard would be extremely disruptive. So I'll let Rick speak to this. So the path forward, as property owners and as a neighborhood, we're asking council just to pause its consideration of the new marine development zone as it pertains to Mill Cove. I think the roadblock is in a totally different different circumstances. We'd like the council to maintain the current industrial zone and continue to have neighborhood and property owner consultation to arrive at a compatible solution that works not only for us, but also works for the Stevens Boatyard owner and High School's Boatyard as well. And I think we have to find a way that we can continue to coexist with each other like we have for the last 80 to 100 years. So that's all I wanted to table.
Thank you.
I'll be even briefer than that. I'm Rick Foster, and I live at I have a home at 99 Granite Street. I think I'm the only one in the neighborhood who, I live between Halifax and Chester. Because of my business, I have to be in both locations. So, first of all, Lloyd Robbins is generally our spokesperson for the group of people within that Mill Cove area. And Lloyd, unfortunately, is in the hospital today. So you have to bear with me bumbling along a little bit. But he did ask me to ask the council if he could speak next week on May 2nd. Would there be any objections to that?
I don't know what all we have on the agenda.
I believe Pam added him, but I have his contact number, so I'll confirm with Pam and contact him directly.
It doesn't matter. Any member of the public can address us
Yeah.
any council day in the morning,
he
whether
would
it's on
be,
the agenda or not.
yeah, he no matter what he's going to say, it would be 15 minutes, I'm sure, at the most. But just to follow up too with Brian's presentation in regards to the wedding venue at First South, which of course is one of the problems that we're concerned about on the Heisler Boatyard, is that with tourist accommodations and a restaurant, if I were an entrepreneur and put money into that, I would expect to be able to do wedding venues, which are loud music. So I was digging around about these wedding venues. So what I did this week was I jumped in my car and I drove down to First South and I knocked on all the neighbors' doors that were close to this proximity. I wasn't shocked. It was perfectly good. I was concerned about knocking on the door of the owner of the business, but that didn't happen. So I talked to the neighbors, and this has been going on since 2021, I believe. And what I said, some of them are kind of adapting to it now, but some of them are saying, well, we just have to go into our house for the evening. We can't sit out on our deck and enjoy a nice quiet evening. First South, if you don't know, is about 4 or 5 kilometers outside of Lunenburg. So compared to talking about right in the middle of the village here. It's about 4 or 5. It's a rural community. The houses, one of the slides showed, the houses are, quite a distance apart compared to the proximity that we have in Mill Cove. So the consensus was, okay, we're kind of learning to live with it a little bit, but I also sensed there's an animosity that has developed in that neighborhood, which I don't want to live in here in Chester. Between the owners of the venue, of the farm, it's called the farm, and the neighbors. There's just a tenseness, and these are rural people who don't want to make a big deal about anything. They're trying to keep things as level. But my goodness, I don't want to live. I don't think anyone in Chester wants to live with that environment. So I do believe that if the zoning can be held for marine industrial, you're going to move on with your big project. But we need the opportunity to discuss with the council and with other people what our ideas might be. And they're not unrealistic. Some of them are extreme, dreamy kind of ideas, but some of them are quite practical. And it will be hard to believe this maybe, but our focus is that Mrs. Heisler can get the best value for her land. She's our neighbor too. It's not like she's somebody that we don't even know. She's been a good neighbor of mine for 14 years, as Butch was. So we want to work in that direction, but we also don't want to be the sacrificial lambs to let her benefit from financially. But I'm sure we can work something out. In a dream world, I see that the marina part of that property, and I know that you're considering a municipal marina at the front harbor, which I've spent a lot of time there. It's so congested, so busy and so on. I would think a municipal marina on the Heisler property would be absolutely ideal. I could also see, which we will lose if it becomes something else, I can see that we really need to maintain the boat building history of over 100 years with the Heislers, and at Stevens Boat Works as well for 50 years. We need to maintain that boat building history here in Chester. It's fine to talk about architectural, vinyl siding, and all that other kind of business, which is really, really important. But so important also is the boat building history that we're going to lose unless we could follow up on that. There are many federally funded and provincially funded interpretive centers around Nova Scotia. There's a Celtic music interpretive center in Jador, Jadik, is that what it is? Jadik, thanks. And there's a tuna interpretive center in St. George's Bay outside of Antigonish. There's a number, and I've visited these places. They're kind of unique. They're small buildings. The interpretive center wouldn't be much bigger, no bigger than this room, but it's all electronic, and you can press buttons and you can see, pictures of Heisler boat building, and there's just, it's amazing. It's not a boat museum. I understand that's in the works or in the proposal for the other side of the village, but it's an interpretive center where you can get an idea. So, and it becomes a fabulous place for the general public of Chester Village to take advantage of, almost like a park, like little benches and so on. Perhaps, I don't know how realistic this is, but that would be part of my wants to do a discussion on that level. Just that it's more open to the public. You put a tourist accommodation and a restaurant there, within 5 years, nobody even knows there was a boat built there. Great educational value for school kids. They can come from the local schools or they can come by school bus and really be able to maintain that history of boat building, which we're extremely fortunate here in Chester to have. It's a diamond in the rough, literally in the rough. And as Joni Mitchell might say, you don't know it's gone. You don't know what you had until it's gone.
Yeah.
So,
Andre, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going to make a comment after.
Oh,
okay, I'm finished.
Yeah, and so oftentimes when the public provides feedback, as you have, we just sort of receive it and we're like, thank you, and sometimes we interact a bit. And at least from my perspective, I wouldn't mind just explaining a bit of, for the benefit, because there's quite a few people turned up here, just some of the thoughts that led us down the road to talking about this today.
Sure.
just to help. And then I don't think any decisions are being made today that's gonna, I think there's lots of times to discuss this. So some of the concerns raised about the marine industrial zone include light and noise pollution from a change, that a change could bring. But I guess, like from my perspective, the marine industrial zone is actually an industrial zone. And today, under its current zoning, we enjoy a marina where people just keep their boats and store them and that. But should this ownership change hands under the current zoning, people could bring steel boats there and sandblast them from 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night every day.
Yeah.
I think that would be, in my mind, I don't live on Granite Street, but that would be a lot worse than having some residential units potentially. Now, so, part of this proposed change might include protections because we also recognize that it's a pretty light industrial use that we have right now. So I just want to put that forward that, I don't think anyone wants to turn it into a wedding venue. And I am very familiar with the site that you've mentioned and First House, so very.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is we understand that totally. No one in this room, to my knowledge, or anyone in our neighborhood is adverse to the zoning changing. It's just the use of it once it changes. So we're not, I don't think there's anyone that's saying, let's just keep it as marine industrial forever. Number one, it doesn't benefit Mrs. Heisler, and it doesn't benefit anyone else in the village by doing that. So I think we're all ready for it to be changed. What I'm suggesting is that if we're going to make that change, the original information from Garth was it was going to be tourism accommodations and a restaurant.
It doesn't necessarily, I don't think it has to be that.
But that's what was in the plan.
Yeah, but
That's what-
I think
That's a permitted use.
As a permitted use.
I think a lot of, I think we were thinking because a lot more modern marinas have other components to them besides people just don't bring their boats and leave their boats. They have other amenities there.
Yeah.
So I think what this council was attempting to envision is something that allows for, people that come and that's what they do is boat, so they need some accommodations or, they need to get a sandwich or whatever. I think that was what was envisioned with this plan and not we're going to hold 100-person weddings there. So if there's room with the public, I think there's room on this side to discuss how that could be accomplished because the owners of the marinas, they're eager to see some flexibility there so that they could, it's hard to make that business work under the current constraints.
And that's perfectly acceptable, and that's why we're asking for, when you move forward with your grand plan, that you keep
Just
it
pause this one.
as marine industrial to give not just us, the neighbors, I would suggest the whole community of Chester might want to have some input into, or not everyone, but a lot of people want some input into what might happen there. So it's not, we're prepared for it to be changed, but let's see if we can communicate and make it work for everyone. And personally, I just don't want to see the boat building history lost, absorbed.
And one last follow-up, and I think that we're all on board with that. I don't know that we want to stop it. I think we're having that discussion right now.
Absolutely.
I don't know that we want to just put this to the side and then carry on, because I think we can have that discussion as we move along.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I'm not sure, a proposal of creating some sort of historic, interpretive municipal zone, that's pretty outside the scope, I think. What you may not get a lot of support here. I'm just speaking for one of seven, but I think there is acceptance here, at least the way I'm reading the body language around this table, is that we understand the value of Chester, we understand the heritage of Chester, and we want to preserve that as much as you do. And just how do we do that? That also makes it so that it's not an economic burden to those that own those properties.
Yeah, well, that's right. And, oh, no, we're fine. I mean, I just, I don't know how long, we would be happy, we meaning whoever wants to be involved in it, would be happy doing it at your pace as well. If you need this to be done while you hold the marine industrial zone, if you need this to be done quickly, we can do that. If you need it to be done in, I don't know, 3 months or something, we can all just have these discussions at periodic times and come up. You'll find the people very, very obliging to the change. It's just that everyone, of course, wants it to be the right change. Yeah.
Derek?
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Thanks, Rick.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
No, we're not done. I said thank you for the presentation.
Oh, I see. I thought I was out.
No, you're not. And Brian, you too. Very thoughtful presentations. And I did have discussions with Lloyd Robbins, who will also speak to this next week. And I'm looking forward to that. Lloyd had spoken for this group at the public meetings. And just wish him well. And I know what he's going through today, so wish him well with that. I agree with what Andre was saying. I mean, if we have to pause it, I'd rather pause it than get it wrong.
Yes.
But I'd rather get it right now and not have to revisit it. And if that's possible, maybe when Lloyd is back and ready next week, we could have some hard proposals on the table, and I'd like to discuss it more with Garth. But this, to me, has probably been the most difficult of the difficult issues, because, I mean, I talked to Butch about this before he died, and I need some flexibility to make this viable. Hasn't been able to be sold in a number of years, but you said there's 100 people living in that area, but I think we got to make something that's going to fit, that's better than we have now, but gives us, whether it could be residential, maybe we just turn it all into residential. I mean, I don't know, but we need to do what's going to work for that area of the village. So why don't we make an effort to come up with what these changes are, not wait till next year. Let's do it as part of this plan if we can.
Okay.
And maybe when Lloyd comes back next week, maybe we'll have some further discussions with Garth. And maybe come up with a number of options, Garth. I don't know if we can do that. I know there's a lot on your plate. But if we could have option 1, 2, and 3 as possibilities.
Well, there'll be a few when I get back to finish my slides, and then I can absolutely add more. Yep.
Okay. No, this all sounds very good. I mean, again, you know, we as neighbors at the very beginning, we're feeling quite tight on this, you know. It's and as soon as everyone read what looked like wedding venues, that's when, you know. But you would find all of the neighbors very obliging. No one's in there to force it to stay as marine industrial.
Yeah, well, I think one last comment here. Like, oftentimes when we want to make some adjustments inside of the village of Chester, it's like everybody's like, oh boy, here we go. And then it's like, you know, we propose some changes and there's like hysteria that like we're going to destroy Chester. And it's like, hang on, just calm down. Like, we want what you want. We're just trying to make some fine tuning because, you know, like oftentimes we'll make changes like 10, 15 years ago, and then we as a municipal council and staff, we live through like all kinds of little nuanced problems that they are invisible to the public because we're dealing with them. And it's like a lot of times we need to make these changes to fix that stuff too. And so, you know, when we bring forth changes, it's often the accumulation of like a decade worth of little problems that we've been sort of like dealing with. And you know, nobody wants to destroy Chester here.
No, of course not. And again, my focus, my core focus is about the boat building history, because I don't know of any other place that has this ability to promote that.
Abdallah?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Garth, the 2 lots basically we're talking about are Stevens, and Heisler.
Yes.
So, what, are they saying anything, or
There's,
I mean,
there's 2 letters in the package, one from each in support of the marine development zone.
okay.
Yeah, so that's, and I think Councillor Wells pointed that out too, and as well as Rick, that there's, the neighbors are on one side and the business owners are on another, not in a
Not a combative way.
Finding a middle ground, that's what we have to do.
Well, that's right. And it's too important, there's too much history there not to take the time to find the middle ground.
This has probably been the most respectful discussion we've had as far as the zoning. I mean, the two people that want it and the group that don't, I haven't sensed any animosity, no bad mouthing, just let's find the right.
Yeah, the right fit. And we all know too, that any entrepreneur, and it might be a mixture of private money, federal money, I don't know how it would ever unfold, but every entrepreneur is not going to get into this unless they can make some money on it. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. But, and I'm all for that, we just have to. Also, I don't think Eileen is planning on moving out of the house. My understanding is that she is keeping the house, but maybe maybe that's changed now that Butch has passed on. So, we want to keep her as a good neighbor.
But whenever we come up with that, we have to look beyond the current use and the current ownership.
Yeah.
So that this will have a legacy of success.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to be a win for the municipality, has to be a win for the village, has to be a win for the boatyard owners right now, has to be also a win for the residential owners that surround it.
We just need a more detailed conversation with those that have
That's
the
it.
most direct.
Yeah, and certainly residential and any other options, all options are on the table for us except tourism and a restaurant, because it's very easy to become a wedding venue.
Yeah. Do we have one more speaker?
No, that's okay. We're over time now.
June's our neighbor too.
Well, I think we've generally speaking agreed that we're going to have a more detailed
Yeah,
discussion.
I feel very, very comfortable. I appreciate your openness to this as well, because.
Just say June has written a lengthy letter that we've read.
I have written a letter.
Yes, we've read your letter.
Thank you.
So you made your input, so we heard what you had to say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Garth, I think you're back.
There's only 2 issues left to go through.
Only 2?
Yeah.
And one of them was this one.
One of them was this one, so
It's
yeah.
kind of already, I wouldn't say resolved, but.
We're well on the way to
determined
discussing
path.
that. So if we, let's see here. So so I guess maybe that's where we'll start, is the marine development zone. So this is 5 or 6 from the end.
That's it.
Yeah. So I think the issues have already been outlined nicely here. So I also am not sure if council's going to be prepared to make a decision today on this one, particularly with Lloyd coming next week. In terms of the initial options that I had sort of outlined, just on the next slide if we could, would be to, option 1 would be to we could just remove the marine development zone entirely from the plan. That would leave the boatyards as marine industrial, which, when the neighbor request first came in, that was what was proposed, but I think as the discussion has evolved, like we heard there, that's not maybe what they see as the long-term solution anymore either, that there should be a change, it's just what change. So we could just pull it out entirely. We could maintain the marine industrial zone for the Heisler and Stevens boatyard and keep the new marine development zone. It would only apply to the rope loft in this case. Which may be what we're kind of working towards here. Number 3 would be to revise the marine development zone and remove some of those specific uses and or cap the number of tourist accommodations. So a couple of those points were made that it was because they're going through development agreement as proposed, tourist accommodations didn't have a number associated with it. So we could certainly say tourist accommodations up to 4 units or 6 units or whatever was felt to be acceptable, or we could obviously remove that entirely.
What I kind of heard from what just took place was that it's probably a good idea for you, Derek, to sit down with a group of people, not the whole community, because I think that it's impacted mostly by the neighbors and the two people who own the property, and try to come up with.
Yeah, and actually, Councillor Wells mentioned it earlier, a sixth option, which isn't on here, that may actually be the solution to some, but not all of the problems, would be potentially look at making it residential. My understanding.
That may be, but I just think that to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, sure.
We should.
Okay, we can just move on. Yeah. So am I correct that we'll revisit that?
The only comment.
When are we going to revisit that?
I'll just second that.
The only commentary I have is that, you know, if we went all residential, the whole piece of like trying to hang on to your boat building,
that's lost.
Deleted that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So those things are in conflict. The other thing is, I think part of the concern here is that it's a bit vague, maybe intentionally so, on what could be done. And so the more detail we can supply about numbers, units, form factor of this, any potential development, that will help, because, you know, uncertainty breeds like bad feelings. So we want to, if you can bring more certainty to the potential, I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, we could revise the list of permitted uses to be very specific, so that only, you know,
and I think that's probably where we're going to end up. It's just that you might as well have a little discussion with several people.
Okay, so we'll have, so I guess we'll wait till the end to talk about timelines. Okay, so there was only one other item. This is third from the end. Sorry, we're jumping around. So this was I guess I would say a staff identified issue. So when we came back to council and got our direction on draft 2, we also had, there was a discussion around this height variance. Other existing buildings were higher than the permitted height to allow. It was requested here at council to allow, basically, if you were building and the height limit in an area was whatever it was, but there were other buildings that were already higher than that, then this would allow you to go somewhat above the maximum. So a couple of points with this. Generally not well received. There was a lot of concern about height creep, it would really be over decades as generations of buildings were built, that you could keep kind of going up as long as another 2 were existing. And then also we've heard this repeatedly that, you know, once you get over 33 feet, apparently the ladders on the fire truck will not quite fly. So we heard those long-standing issues. So there's a question as to whether we keep this provision or not. And then an item that's been identified from a staff perspective is that if we do want to keep this, it actually doesn't need to be done as a variance, which is how we initially proposed it. And the thinking behind that, if we do like the idea, is that we just write it in essentially as a condition or a general provision. So you just have to prove that in order to receive the exemption on your height limit. Really, the way we had it set up in the bylaw as a variance, there wasn't much for the development officer to actually consider as to whether they grant it or not. So it would almost always be a yes, and we're still going through the variance procedure, but there's no real criteria for when she would say no, because they would have already proved that there's 2 existing buildings that are taller. So there's, I think, 2 questions here. Is A, do we like the idea? Do we want to keep it in the document? And then if we do, I think the recommendation would be to no longer use it as a variance and just keep it as a general condition.
Eric, any?
Yeah. I'd have to think about this one. I don't like the idea that you can go higher. You're not making a recommendation on this one, Garth?
Yes, number 4. Isn't that on my list?
My only recommendation is.
I don't see number 4.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one, sorry.
He's on the wrong page, it's not.
I thought it was a joke. Script, yeah.
Sorry.
So you don't have a recommendation?
No, my only recommendation is if council chooses to keep it in, that we no longer do it as a variance. That's my piece is more on the procedural piece, whether or not it stays in or not. It came from this table as to the request for it, and so, yeah.
So are we going to continue?
If I can, I remember when we discussed this originally, and you know, there were a number of noteworthy historical applications that came before us, such as like wanting to put a cupola on our health center. We couldn't do it.
Right.
It was too high. It was hurting nothing. And we had no mechanism to help them do that. And we wanted to provide some sort of mechanism to provide thoughtful mechanism to do small changes in height that would not really adversely affect anyone. So, maybe doing it as a variance isn't the right way. Maybe it could be by special, like by VA or something, so that we can be thoughtful about it. But there are sometimes, having these hard and fast height, they just don't work very well. And oftentimes it's not harmful at all. And so we just need to, I don't know how, I do have a hard job, but there's got to be a mechanism by which we can be thoughtful about it.
There's always exceptions.
Yeah, and there is, and that actually that's a good point. So there is generally through the MGA the ability to ask for a variance to height outside of this piece.
Doesn't it have to be in the municipal planning strategy for height?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's repeated there, but in that case, you're going to be up against the usual,
Public hearings, all that.
well, criteria that the development officer is looking at. So she's looking to say you're not the only property in the area. It's not a general issue subject to. So it's tough to get height variances that way. And the thinking, you're right. The thinking here was to enable something to be a bit more flexible in cases where
It makes sense.
where it seemed to make sense. So yeah, if there's still a desire to have some sort of a relief mechanism in there, we can rethink how we're doing that. Maybe we take out some of the specifics here about the 2 buildings within 75 meters, and we bring back something else through development agreement if that's the wish. That would make it more of a one-off, and it would take effort to go through the process.
That would limit. To make it too easy, then everybody's going to apply for it. So, I have an application for the municipality for a DA. It's not an unpleasant experience. So, that would no offense.
Yeah.
But so I understand that would actually slow down people that were just flippantly asking for more height when it's not really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there should be an exception. We should have the ability in some fashion, because yes, like that cupola, I remember that.
And we ended up
building look better.
And what we ended up doing in that case was we made an amendment to the plan to allow cupolas on institutional buildings.
Yeah.
So it's very specific to allow that. Yeah, so you're right. That's not.
The development agreement process does that, because a lot of people just will not do it. It's a process. Yes, Sam.
Gareth, we're looking at the building as a whole, which case I think you would not want to go by development agreement, or are you just looking at structures that might be added, like the cupola or a railing or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good.
You're not talking about the whole building going up higher, just a particular
element
of it.
Right.
That might be something that's easier to be administered by
No,
development officer.
who knows? Maybe there's a case where they're trying to add a dormer or something like that, and it ends up being a foot too high. Or to me, you might want to look at that thoughtfully and say, well, this actually isn't really a big problem.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll be terrible, and maybe we're like, no, we don't
So
want
that's
it.
option 2?
No, this isn't one of the 3
I
options.
think we're talking about maybe moving it if there is a height.
So it would be number 4.
It is option 4.
You're right on it.
Basically by DA.
Yeah.
You're ahead of us.
Yeah, well, DA gives a lot of input and a lot of flexibility in our.
And you can listen to the concerns of the neighbors at that point.
It
because
does.
there's a
It
public
does
hearing.
do the public input. Yep. Okay. So I'll put together some language for.
Are you truly done for the day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Not really.
No.
We haven't talked about institutional.
Okay.
We talked about the uses in the institutional if it comes to Lordley Park, and the proposals that it be a little more restrictive than it is right now.
Okay.
So we can have that discussion now, we can have it later. I know we're gonna have some discussions later that might impact on
Yeah.
It's council's will.
That was as good a time as any. while you're-
There isn't a corresponding slide, but we could absolutely have the discussion on the institutional zone and the permitted uses.
maybe just go over the present permitted uses, and I think there's some in there that we really don't want in the institutional zone.
Okay, so
If we leave Lordley Park institutional.
going down the list here of institutional zone uses, so the first one is a unique one. So the first one is golf course, but that is specific only to the current properties where the golf course exists. So that's kind of an exception. The rest of these will apply to every institutional lot. That's one that's only allowed where it currently stands. So other institutional uses are arenas, rinks, and sport venues, medical clinics, religious institutions and places of worship, child care facilities, community centers, educational institutions, schools or presumably or colleges, emergency services, including fire, police, ambulance, and REMO, hospitals, libraries, museums, public art galleries, private clubs and fraternal organizations, and nursing homes. So that's the current list.
Forget about the covenants there. Which one of these would we want in Lordy Park?
A rhetorical question.
I think these,
What's Lordley Park zone
So
map?
currently Lordley Park is zoned
and
institutional.
all these uses would be permitted.
And I know we also heard comments that that the zoning should be changed to parks and open space to better reflect the use of that land. So there's a discussion about, do you change the institutional zone or do you change the zoning of the property? Yeah. And even still, maybe some of these uses for other institutional zones are not. Yeah. So
Well, I guess I know that that's on our in-camera session, and I think that to be fair, while we're in negotiations, it's probably not.
Well, that's what I said, we may want to defer till next week, but I don't, it's still on the table as far as I'm concerned, because those aren't acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, I think to be fair to the negotiating partners, that we should just leave it to the second.
And I've tried to be sensitive to that in terms of, I think in other situations, I likely would have brought forward a recommendation to rezone it to parks and open space, but knowing that there are private conversations that I'm not privy to going on, I've been kind of waiting.
Yeah, by yourself.
Okay, so I do need some direction. I had hoped today to be off to producing a final draft, and that's clearly not the case.
You're almost there.
Well,
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm not complaining, I'm just.
I think we gave you direction on almost everything with the unresolved issue being the marine industrial piece. Where you just need to have a meeting and try to come up with a.
Well, so Lloyd, my understanding is Lloyd is going to present to council next week. So then, is that incorrect?
Well, no, he is supposed to, but whether they'll have a discussion and just want to get together with you.
So, sure, so then Councillor Wells and myself would meet with the residents and try to come up with a.
Well, that's what I would think.
Yeah, okay.
He would be part of that discussion.
Commercial owners as well?
Well, yes, they need to be involved.
They should be involved.
Oh, yeah, it impacts them or that does it.
Steve, I think, yeah.
No, absolutely, that was the intention.
Yeah.
So we'll have that meeting. I will see what I can come up with for the height DA option, and we'll be back in several weeks.
Other than that, I think we gave you relatively.
Oh yeah, no. But I just in terms to make sure that we don't get lost on where we are.
Yeah, so the intention, I think, is to come back, to have those meetings, come back probably
final
by
direction.
the
Final.
end of May, middle of June sometime, with another draft.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think Garth is looking for a little bit of direction on whether that draft would need to go, whether council would want that to go for another round of consultation, or are we at that point thinking that we'd be ready for notice?
Steaming ahead at that point.
Yeah.
So are we bringing back discussion or a final draft?
I think we're
I'm still
bringing
not clear
back
on
the
that.
final draft.
Okay, so we're making the decisions following the meet. Staff will make those decisions following the meeting and put together the draft.
Yeah.
Okay, so got it.
That's a recommended draft.
Yeah, of course, yep. Okay, great.
Okay, so now
Direction to leave, guys.
where am I on this agenda? Oh, request, I think. Requests for decision prepared March 17th, Community Development Recreation on Property Heritage deregistration. So we need a motion to deregister.
That is what we're looking for, yes.
Well, we've already had a discussion.
I have a support, but if you feel satisfied, you can totally make a motion.
Oh, yeah, you can hear it along,
that's another.
Somebody making that motion?
I am.
My little dog.
Are we seconding this? Discussion? All those in favor?
Thanks.
Opposed, motion carries. Good to see you, Emily.
Good job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what I work for.
Okay.
10.1.
10.1, email Keith Fox regarding property taxes. Somebody tell me.
This item, this is from
What that all means to me.
yeah. Tim, are you familiar with this one?
A little bit, yeah. Well, I've read it.
I read it.
So this is someone who found out that he had been missing paying one of his property tax bills for a couple of years. Subsequently went and appealed the valuation to PBSC. He received a revised opinion of value. This letter says he will be further appealing that. He's asking for us to reduce his taxes and not charge him interest on the amounts that he was charged. We have authority to do that? I think in the past, we have taken some situations into consideration. Not we, I guess you, as a council. The last time somebody like this was the...
Gail Smith?
No, it was the one with the civic address in the beaches, I think it was. This one is, from my understanding, it's just that he wasn't getting one of his tax bills forwarded to his updated address, which is not on us. And he's also suggesting revised opinions of value using some sort of reverse inflation on PBSC's.
I don't think that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we required that we don't have to make a motion? So. As far as I'm concerned, this is a communicate correspondence to council. He has sent you an email.
Receive it.
You can receive it.
We're receiving.
Okay. So, community development, new road name. You've been here for a while too.
Yeah, and we have a new private road name in Cross Point. The one property owner has proposed the name Compass Cove Court, and it's a unique road name in Nova Scotia. We have no objections from the fire department or from Public Works.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I know it's in Floyd's district.
All those in favor, well, opposed, most carried. He'd have told me if he didn't want it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As it is lunchtime, people are probably ready to get over here if they can.
Crowd's starting to thin out. You don't want to hear what the pressure?
Okay, 11.1, request community development recreation. Oh.
11.2.
Just did that one.
11.2.
11.2. Community development recreation request of demolition of Mill Road.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to go through the report. Essentially, we have a structure that's in very poor condition, and it's gone through our dangerous and unsightly committee, and there was a motion by that committee. Typically, our other orders are dealt with at that committee, and we just go do it. But when it comes to demolition, that's required to be a motion of council, and so that recommendation from the committee is being brought forward today to recommend to have that structure demolished. And one of the challenges with this particular one is we're not able to get a hold of the property owner. There's no communication. The property taxes right now are outstanding, so we're kind of doing everything we can do to communicate with them, but we haven't been able to date. So following proper process, and we've kind of done some checks in with Sam. So we've been posting those notices on the property just so to make the community aware and to try to make the property owner aware of what's happening. So at this point in time, we're obviously recommending the demolition, and we would post that again on the property and give sufficient time for the property owner to carry out that order. And if they fail to do so, then we will do that. And one note in there that is mentioned is that before we would carry that, we'd also need to have a hazard assessment completed just to see the condition of what's in that structure in terms of asbestos and those types of things. And of course that would need to be remediated if it is found to be present, and then we would proceed with the demolition. It is falling down.
So, just a question, so if the taxes aren't paid, I assume that this will go up for a tax sale at some point when we go through the period of no one's paying the
And
taxes?
our expenses would go against the property.
Right, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that was my question, that's fine.
That's fine.
You want to add?
Okay.
You do?
No, I just want
No.
to make comments if I can, please.
Yeah.
So, so certainly sitting on the Building Code on Slightly Premises Committee and seeing this work through the timeline and being the representative for the district in which Mill Road falls, this was brought to my attention by the community of interest around the property and the worry around the state of the property, obviously from the road looking in. They would not have been on site. So I have high respect for the committee and the process, and especially so the staff in terms of Kendall and Brent, and Chad, but Kendall and Brent going out to the site and documenting their visits and what they've done. And I paid particular attention, because this isn't a good thing to do, really, right? It's not. It might be that necessary thing to do, and I think it probably is, but it's not ever a good thing. But I paid particular attention to the paragraph capture around the discussion, and that's very well captured in terms of bylaw as well as building inspector and every possible avenue to contact the owner, et cetera, et cetera. And legal's been brought in, so again, not a good thing, but it's necessary.
Tina, it looks like a church.
It was.
Oh, it was a church?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
Somebody want to make a motion that we,
I'll make the motion.
Just a minute. Chad, that notice gave you posted with that the matter will be heard today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the person has a chance if they.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's in there.
yeah, who's seconder for the motion?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Yeah, church. I got married there, yeah, my second one. Oh, my first one, that's why
You
church
can
know
go
that.
take it home if you want.
It was struck my leg.
11.3, finance pre-approval debenture insurance.
Yeah, so this is the pre-approval that we need to pass, a motion to pass the resolution of pre-approval of debenture issuance subject to interest rates. It's that standard document that needs to be submitted to the province for the spring debenture. And so it will cover 3 projects that were approved in the fall through the temporary borrowing resolution, and then an additional 2 that were approved in the more recent temporary borrowing resolution. And the total to be borrowed is $6,854,600, the vast majority of which is to fund the construction of the latest landfill cell.
Somebody prepared to move it?
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. We are getting there, people. Corporate strategic management, municipal GSAP elections.
Yes, so Pam is not here as returning officer. So I'll try and walk you through her report. As you're aware, the 2024 municipal election takes place October 19th. Nomination day is September 10th. And so the returning officer and election staff require approval by council in order to prepare for the upcoming election. So Pam has provided you with some background information there on each of the items. And there's a series of 10 recommended motions that we need. Yeah, so there's a series of 10 recommended motions that we're looking for from council. The first one is that council approve the preliminary list of electors to be used for the 2024 election to be obtained from the Nova Scotia Elections Office as per the information sharing agreement with Elections Nova Scotia. And I'm not sure if you want me to go through them all or just stop at that one, do that motion, and then.
Yes.
Are we allowed to do them all at once?
Do them one at a time.
One at a time.
Why do you want to split up?
Because I want to see each one.
One,
I may disagree with one.
okay, a motion to approve the first one.
So moved.
Second, discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, second one.
The council approved the districts and divisions as per the April 18th, 2023 order from the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board for the 2024 municipal.
Seconded, discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Third one, the council authorized the election to be carried out fully electronically by telephone and internet through the use of electronic devices.
Question?
Okay,
does that mean someone cannot vote in person?
Correct.
In the past, we had this.
We've always set up.
So we've always set up, so correct in that, sorry, it's not paper. If they want to make an appointment with Pam or the returning officer, they are able to do that, or the assistant returning officer, they're able to do that in person and come and do that, but it's the election, the actual vote doesn't happen on a piece of paper, it happens electronically.
Okay.
Didn't we
Oh,
always
no,
set
no,
up
no.
kiosks?
We had a polling station
We had a
last,
kiosk.
Yeah.
We had a
last
kiosk
election.
somewhere.
We still had
So-
polling
so-
stations.
No, we did not.
No.
It was here, and we haven't done that in a while, so it is here. And we do have a device available, a station available for people to come in and do that here.
That's right.
But it's still done electronically.
Okay, but they didn't have to do it from home, or they may
didn't
not have
do it from
access to
home.
the
They can
stuff.
make an appointment, they can come in, they
That's
can do
right.
that here, but it cannot, we're not doing paper ballots, it's electronic.
The other thing is, we have people on the phone also.
Just a second, I need to hear this.
We have people on the phone here, anybody has a problem with voting?
That they can help.
They help, and I know they're very busy on election day, helping people go to, either on the phone or by computer, is how you do it. And if that doesn't work, then they can make an appointment to come in and do it.
I don't recall any concerns that I'm remembering from 2020.
Yeah, I can give you a summary, because I talked to Pam about it. So, just for information, we've held electronic elections in 2012, hybrid elections in 2012 and 2016, since 2012, sorry. So 2012, 2016, they were hybrid.
Right.
Fully electronic in 2020 and 2021 by-election. And residents are able to use a telephone or the internet through the use of electronic devices. As we said, they can make an appointment, they can come in, there is a station here available, we can help them, we can walk them through the process. The only, Pam identified 2 issues that we had in the last 2 elections. One of them is sometimes the voter list that we get from Elections Nova Scotia and the system they flip the birth dates, so it's month, I think it's month, date, or month, date, year, or date, month, year, and that gets reversed in some cases. And so as soon as you walk the person through that, they're able to get in and access what they need to access. But that's just a manual data entry error. And so once that's corrected, there's been no problems. And then the only other one was we had one individual who come in and had to come in and see Pam, and they both had problems getting the person registered to vote. And what they realized was that they had the wrong PIN. They had another household member's PIN number and letter. So once they realized that, they were able to get in and vote. So has been no identified issues. We've had no complaints about it. So
Yeah, there were problems during the by-election that we were able to resolve.
yeah.
But don't say there were no problems, there was lots of problems with people
There was,
trying to
those
vote.
were the major problems that Pam identified to me, and everything she identified had been able to be resolved.
Yeah, they were resolved, but it was sometimes not easy.
Okay, so are we gonna do this?
Yeah, as long as we have some helplines or something.
There is, yeah.
Okay, motion to
I
approve.
think it's already been motioned, I think we called discussion.
Did we already move it and just?
I didn't get it first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was.
No, you do that.
All right, move.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Next one.
Okay, the council approved the award of the tender to appoint IntelliVote Systems as the vendor for the electronic election at an estimated cost of $24,750, and that's based on having an estimated 9,000 voters in the system.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Next one.
Council set the dates for the advanced polling period from Thursday, October 10th, 2024 to the closing of voting on regular election day of October 19th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried.
That council authorized expenditures for the 2024 election up to the amount held in reserve for that purpose, which is $57,000. The cost of the 2020 elections was $32,982, so we should be sufficient to cover that.
Well, you gotta pay for it.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried.
The seventh one is that council approve, in addition to the method mandated by the Municipal Elections Act, to notify the public of the preliminary list of electors and revision method in the newspaper. The returning officer will provide additional notification in the municipal newsletter and issue voter information letters to electors in order to improve the accuracy of the electors.
Just on the new residents being in the district at a certain time, do we, when we advertise for the election, do we put that in as well if you're not on the voters list?
Yeah, that's what this intention of this is to maintain the accuracy of the voters.
If you have pin assigned,
Yeah.
if you're eligible to vote, but you're not on the list.
Yes.
You have to.
Somebody want to move it?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Next.
To set the date for the finalization of the voters list as August 27th, 2024, following a revision period of August 6th to the 23rd, 2024. So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Next.
The election staff provide a public education program on the upcoming election and offer information sessions for potential candidates. So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Keep it close.
Last one, that we appoint Jennifer Weber as the assistant returning officer.
So moved, you got a job, Jennifer.
Moved and seconded, is it?
Yes.
Who seconded it? I did.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I hear.
Pick whoever you want. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. There you go.
Thank you.
Come on.
Okay, let's do something fun. Ashley, you want to come to Community Economic Development Officer? Want to tell us who the winners are? Best Chester Awards?
That's the Chester Municipality Awards.
Yes.
Municipality Awards. Absolutely. Usually down the stairs.
All right, so I'll just run through them. So first one, Best Artisanal Retailer. First place went to Village Emporium. Runner-up was Martin's Point Mercantile. Best
What was the Martin's Point, sorry?
Mercantile.
We'll get a list of this after.
Yeah. The new one down on Duke Street. It used to be Martin's Point Pop-Up.
Oh, okay. Change, okay.
Best Building Services, first place went to Chester Building Supplies. Runner-up is Gates Electric. Best Building Supplies Store went to Chester Building Supplies. Runner-up was Chester Home Hardware. Let me know if you want to know third place. I mean, I know or not. No. Okay, cool. Best Community Space, first place, Lordley Park.
I don't have that one.
Runner-up this year was Together We Can Community Park in Gold River.
That's a pretty good one too.
Best Farm or Forestry Business, first place was Ross Farm. Second place was Integrity's Haven Equine Rescue Center. Best Garden Services, first place Ocean View Garden Center. Runner-up was Downey Picture Plant Nursery. Best Gas Station, first place was Running Man Express, Chester Basin Petrocan. Runner-up was the Gold Nugget in the AFN.
We don't give two anyway. Oh, no, that's.
Best Grocery or Convenience Store, first place went to Spittle's Independent Grocer. Runner-up was the Chester Foodland. Best Healthcare Provider, first place was the Chester Primary Care Clinic at the pharmacy. Runner-up was Our Health Center. Best Health or Beauty Services, first place went to Luna Salon Spa and Boutique. Runner-up was Valerie's Hair Studio. Best Manufacturing Business, first place went to Black Harbor Distillers. Runner-up was South Shore Concrete.
Black Harbor makes a product that people like.
Yes,
maple. I like what's social concrete.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Best Marine Services, first place was South Shore Marine. Runner-up was Gold River Marina. Best Mechanic or Auto Shop, first place was Chester European Automotive. Runner-up was Gold River Service Center. Best Nonprofit Group, first place went to Bonnie Lee Farm.
oh, nice.
Runner-up was the Lighthouse Food Bank. Best Pet Services. First place was Your Friend and Mine Pet Supplies. Runner-up was Ocean Mark Canine Resort. Best place to have a coffee. First place went to Kiwi Cafe. Runner-up was Imperfections Cafe. Best place to stay. First place, Oak Island Resorts and Conference Center. Runner-up was Lazy Mines Campground. The best professional services. First place went to 2 Salty Chefs. And the runner-up was Scotiabank here in Chester. Best realtor. First place went to Susan Diamond. Runner-up was Jessica Birch. Best restaurants. First place went to Imperfections Cafe. The runner-up was Savory Plate and Pit. Best spa or fitness facility. First place went to Sensi Nordic Spa. Runner-up was Luna Salon Spa and Boutique. The best specialist retailer. First place went to Kiwi Pantry. Runner-up was the Shop on Central. And last one, the best vendor at a farmer's market. First place went to Higby's Berry Farm and Nursery. Runner-up, Savory Plate Eatery.
Congratulations to all the winners. Pat, how many people participated in voting?
We had over 3,000 votes this year.
3,000?
Yeah.
Well, that's
People vote twice?
No, one vote.
One vote per.
We track the IP addresses. So I have to filter out all the duplicates.
Pretty impressive. Do we have the, not to read out, but 3, 4, and 5, or?
I have first, second, and third here.
Okay.
I didn't go beyond that because.
Yeah, I'd like to have a paper copy of that.
Yeah.
Or, well, just email it to me. Well, you can give me that.
I can give you this and.
Can you email it out if you, or?
Absolutely, I can email it to everybody.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that.
Sure.
What about best engineering firm? You didn't make the cut?
No category.
No category.
Wow, then.
We have to look at that for next year.
No, that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now there's one more thing, and that's Municipal Plan Advisory, Sharon.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I know we want to get out of here. We met on April the 17th, and I'll just say there were 3 items of business. One, a development agreement application for the Chester Commons development, the Wheelhouse 24-unit housing development. The committee has recommended that it move to council. They recommended the process, and just wanted to make a note that the stormwater drainage issue was clearly looked after. There were some concerns from a property owner on the water runoff. And second, a development agreement application for Bear Lake Wind Farm, which has 2 turbines in our municipality.
Yeah.
And they also recommended that come forward, and which would be a good thing, because it probably will give us about another at least $90,000 income for the 2 turbines, the taxes on the 2 turbines. So it's a good thing. Plus,
Almost a half a cent right there.
pardon me?
Almost a half a cent.
There you go. And the third one was to request that a substantial amendment to the development agreement for the Chester Shore Mall requirement to remove the fence on the southern property boundary, and they agreed that it makes sense, and just a few restrictions on the trees to keep a buffer, but that's coming to council. And I know there's a lot on their agenda, so it may not be for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, that's the end of the agenda. Does anybody mind if we take a 5-minute break before we do the one in
In
camera?
camera, yeah, not at all, no.
Do we need a motion to adjourn now?
We're going in here.
Oh, yeah, I suppose we could have a motion to adjourn, yeah.
So moved.
Second.